of the many men who wanted to wish death upon Mike McCarthy's tenure at the Dallas Cowboys is this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Dahn Orlovsky. Dano! Ferguson was tweeting directly at you and the others that wanted Big Mike McCarthy out of Dallas. We just heard Mickey Loomis in between gum chews directly into it. Yeah, okay. Oh, my God. I'm losing my mind. I can't even do it. What's that called? It's called something.
Misophonia or something like that?
Because your dad.
Yeah, my dad chews, and I can't, like, it literally drives me crazy. And I always thought I was soft, but it turns out it's actually a thing that a lot of people potentially have. Misophonia or something like that. Whatever the case. You've been calling for big change down there in Dallas. Now that he's around, after you heard him speak today, does it change? What are your thoughts on the Cowboys going forward? Because your initial thought, I think a little emotional response on Twitter was not serious about winning a Super Bowl, all talk. So where do we stand as of this moment? And what happens if Big Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott just come Dak all over your face next year?
Yeah, that's a weird word. Listen, I thought on Monday change was needed, given how the game went. Not that they just lost, given how the game went. Is it the right decision? I think it's a mistake to keep Coach McCarthy. We'll find out in a year. This is what's going to happen. The Cowboys will be really good next season. Everyone will go, well, is this the time? Is this Dallas's best chance? And we'll all probably go like, yeah, because they're really good. And then they'll go to the playoffs and they'll lay an egg like usual. So, that's just what they are. That's
how. So let me hear this. Let me hear this out of Big Mike McCarthy's camp, or from you, I guess. Stephen A. laid out he was like, he had Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. Now he's got Dak Prescott. And Stephen A., I think he alluded to how you guys tell me he's great. He only has one Super Bowl throughout this entire thing or whatever. His offense is, though, always renowned as good. Always. Right? It feels like Mike McCarthy's. So he's obviously reaching the offensive players, motivating the offensive players, inspiring the offensive players in the locker room. Why do you think he potentially, or the Cowboys inevitably, are being labeled as a team that just their last game of the season will be a lay of an egg? Why do you think that happened to the Dallas Cowboys? Do you think maybe they just didn't have a good one and it all came together in a spot where the Green Bay Packers, the fifth scariest quarterback, Jordan Love, was, that's on your list, was Dyson? Like, why do you think it happened? And how is Mike McCarthy potentially the one that should shoulder the blame for what happened to the Cowboys? In your eyes. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah, well, why it happened is it was a bad matchup from the beginning because of the things that Green Bay excels at. They put Jordan under center. They go a ton, 12 personnel. They run a ton of pre-snap motion and play action. That is stuff that throughout this season, Dallas has struggled with. The next level is they were absolutely outcoached. There's no question about it. Dallas defensively aligned multiple times against the looks that Green Bay had, and you were sitting there going, there's no way that you can, human being wise, stop a team from running the football here. And that's what happened. Or they handled motion. Dude, I have clips, Pat, where they would motion Jaden Reed, Green Bay would be. And if you're a Packers fan, you know that kid is unbelievably talented and fast. And they would run a linebacker with him in man coverage. That's bad coaching. Dan Quinn knows 1,000% more football than I do defensively, but that's bad coaching. And then offensively, I had someone look this up. Green Bay, who is not been good on defense this year. Bryce Young and Tommy DeVito played against them and got NFC Players of the Week. This past week was the closest they have been coverage-wise when it comes to like some of the numbers that say average yards of separation. That was their average yards of separation, when it means like their defenders to the offensive team, was the closest they've been all year. So that tells me they had a pretty good beat on what Dallas was trying to do, or pretty good feel for what Dallas was trying to do. So that game, yes, they were exposed personnel-wise. We knew they don't have defensive tackles or inside linebackers, but to get completely woodshedded like that is coaching. But then that goes back to last year. Like, they were outcoached again in the San Francisco game. 2 years ago, that game ends because of a clock management situation. So, that's why you sit there and go, no question Mike McCarthy's a good coach. No question. But at some point, we can't. That's why I said you're not serious about a Super Bowl. Because if you were serious about a Super Bowl, you could sit there and go, Coach McCarthy's a good coach, not good enough for us to get to the Super Bowl.
Got it. And are you feeling that way about all the jobs that are potentially sticking with their coaches? For instance, Steelers staying with Mike Tomlin, legend. Saints are staying with Dennis Allen. I assume Chicago's staying with Eberflus. Like, do you feel about all those jobs? Sirianni and Philly, do you feel about all those jobs the same way?
Well, no, I think, one, Dallas probably has the most stacked roster out of that group that you just said, and the most talented. I mean, everyone continues to point to, 36 wins in 3 years for Mike McCarthy, and that has to matter for something. Of course, I'm not ignoring that. But in a division that has Washington and the Giants, who have struggled, you should win a lot of games when you have a quarterback who's a top 10, top 12 player who played at MVP level this year, a wide receiver who was the offensive player of the year candidate, 3 all-pros on your offensive line. You have a defensive player of the year candidate in Micah Parsons. DeMarcus Lawrence is one of the best 10 to 12 to 15 defensive linemen in all of football. Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland broke an NFL record for pick sixes, and you have an NFL defense that leads the NFL in takeaways. You should win a lot of games in that situation. Matt Eberflus is just taking over a bad situation in Chicago. With the Mike Tomlin, because people have compared the whole comparison thing between Mike Tomlin and Mike McCarthy. My point in that argument is this. What coach overachieved and what coach underachieved? Given what their football team was and their drafts over the past couple years and rosters and quarterback spot, what coach overachieved and what coach underachieved? It's not even close between the two situations. So I don't look at them as the same, no.
Well, the seasons ended both the same weekend, so I understand where you're coming from. Dan, it's tough, because there's a chance, and there's been so many examples of the past. Mickey Loomis went through it, and obviously Andy Reid had this situation take place. It's like that Dallas Cowboys team could go win it all next year.
For sure.
They could, but that's kind of the story of the Dallas Cowboys, I guess, which is what he's kind of chatting about. All these places could just go be great, and you just had to take it all back. Do you ever think about that whenever you're like, this guy should be fired? You ever think about it on TV? Because a lot of people hear everything we say. I'm learning very quickly. I'm learning that, Dan.
Yeah, listen, dude, I'll share a story with you when it comes to the whole, fire the coach thing that we sometimes get put into these situations, right? So when I was younger, this is an honest story. So when I was young, my first or second year on TV type of thing, I went really hard at Matt Nagy when he was the head coach of the Chicago Bears. And no question crossed a line of, in your opinion, do you think this coach should get fired or not? I went really hard at him. And in the moment, I'm thinking, well, this is what you do in this television world, and I had the chance. He actually wanted to talk to me this past year in Germany, and really good conversation. And he had the chance to kind of open my eyes to the other part of that, and hey, when you're doing this, and I know you have a job to do, there's a part of this that, the personal and the line and the families and all that are connected to it, and the kids. And so I kind of made that decision of hey, I'm not just going to go and crush these guys that I think in those situations when you're asked fired or not. And I try to, in your opinion, football-wise, do you think that person should be the coach or not and get fired? So when I've answered that question this week, I've tried to, even with Nick Sirianni, kind of use the phrasing or the words of by the way this team played and the way that their tape looks, you can justify that coach no longer be the coach or that coach being fired. So it's a delicate balance. We're placed in those situations where we're asked those questions. I'm trying to not keep it personal or make it personal. Yes.
Yeah. I appreciate the growth there. And I assume Big Mike McCarthy is not going to hear the football side of it from Dan Orlovsky. I assume Dan Orlovsky's just going, well, it was Dan, though. That's Mike McCarthy's asking that today to family members that are telling him about what you're saying, because you're one of the leading pundits for the entire NFL. So whenever you say something, obviously it matters a lot. We're all listening to it, as is the entire NFL. I appreciate you taking your stand. You did, but boy, Mike McCarthy has Dan Orlovsky's face, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
Dartboard. Right there in the office.
In the office. It's the reality for us. I have to be I also am a person who's fortunate enough to call games. So I could potentially be saying, having an opinion about something, and then I got to go sit down and talk with that coach. So it's just the reality of the business.
Hey, that's not a good time. There's college stuff. We do that college football stuff. And my first year full time on game day, like picking games, I'm just like, I'm just picking games. This team stinks. It's like, obviously they don't stink. This team is pretty good, but in the moment when I'm picking against it, and then like 2 weeks later, we're on that campus. Mm-hmm. It's not just like I'm meeting the guy that I said, this guy can't get his team motivated. I'm also the whole fan, all their fans are sitting 4 feet behind me. I'm like, gonna run into these people. Radio Row, same exact thing. Whenever we're talking about people, it's
that'll be fun.
Yeah, they all got to run into us now.
Yeah,
after everything they've said all year, that should be a fun time.
I mean, 2 years ago, Coastal Carolina, you chose the other team just to howl.
Yeah, that's it.
Not because you knew anything about
these Chanticleers don't have a chance today. Give me Arkansas State, the Red Wolves. Just so I could howl. Literally, that's all. I just wanted to howl. I thought it was a hilarious thing. And then all of a sudden, I got a hit piece basically coming out from the Coastal Carolina. Hey, Patty boy.
Yeah.
Videos come like, oh my God. Everybody hears everything. So I appreciate that you understand that. You try not to keep it personal. But, boy, some of the stuff you say, it's like, damn, it feels like this guy would like this guy lose his job. But it's a part of the business. Tomlin alluded to it. Mike McCarthy alluded to it. Everybody alluded to it.